what to do in the meantime, and why it doesn't matter. The audiobook by Dr. Michael Richard Lucas. Narrated by me, Samantha. Arranged and produced by Michael Richard Lucas. Chapter 5. Why to be unsuccessful. Tips from an expert. Sitting on toilet still favorite place to plot the death of loved ones. Sitting on toilet still best place to generate social media content. Shitting on toilet still best place to generate social media content. Someone who drinks pee. Episcopalian. Parents spend 75% of bathroom time to get a fucking second to breathe. Sky wizard in open relationship. I'll pretty much eat anything at this point. A poor man's Voltaire author. Love. Smothering our character to death. Our choice in purchasing what we want. The freedom the freest nation was founded on. Building enacting our identities. Prevents us from realizing them. Everything generated by this circular cycle, when we should be spherical. We haven't been able to get out of the circle for long enough to realize other ways of being. The more space-time you spend poking your head out of the circle as you go by, the harder it is to go around the circle. Looking slows you down. You have to be bad at playing the game to understand it. Only the poor know how to be rich, so they can never be rich. Only insane people understand consciousness, but they can't do anything with it. Everyone has a biopic now. Asking poor people for money was probably one of the stupidest things they did during our character's space-time. Holy shit, did our character actually know something others didn't? This was odd. It also meant nobody was in charge. We weren't. Being right had almost never helped our character. Being right had almost never mattered during our character's space-time. It was a decent way of getting people to take their foot off your throat. Sometimes. No assurance in insurance. Statistics proved our character wrong. Statistics proved those statistics wrong. As if statistics held a truth. They didn't. Merely a way to show our character something they didn't know, or couldn't think. A means, not an end. This would plague our characters. Space-time for some space-time. Nobody believed our character. Therefore, our character was the only one who could tell the truth. Capitalism necessarily shortchanged deep space-time. The problems of capitalism were not solved via capitalism. Nation would realize this. Too late. Pennies on the dollar. Committee gets it wrong. Again. Turns out, the one they chose was the one nobody wanted. Again. Democracy only as good as education, and not the education the committee members had. Our character finally caught up to 3 weeks ago. It's not a proper tangent if you remember where you were going. Are there any hollow earthers? I could believe it. Full cavity search. I'm done with the grind. When do I get health care for the teeth I've been grinding? Our character was suffering. They must be making great art. Otherwise, they assumed they weren't suffering that much. Our character wasn't even close to waking up. Every living thing. Let's make more of me. Most lives were spent fulfilling requirements created by idiots. Need more field trips. If you think people are talking about you, they are. You are. We are. Etc. When our world needed a hero, more than ever, they got this book instead. The author. Our character tripped over what must have been a chair. They never saw it. They spilled their glass of red wine all over what they assumed could have been their soulmate. Then they mistakenly mumble something incoherently romantic to the person sitting next to what could have been their soulmate, and never saw their soulmate again. Interesting. Our character had grown tired of these stories. They would start reading it again tomorrow. Oh good. Another day. Again. Too pissed to sleep in. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is the wrong thing to do. Commercial telling our character to be bold. Doesn't know about restraining order. Fork wrong utensil this time. Did our character fail because they were too honest? Probably not. But regardless, people never want honesty. They want to be right, and to conform the world to their pre-established suppositions. It was much easier to do this, requiring no creative thinking. Homo economicus had convinced them. Impossible to do otherwise. Space-time simply wouldn't allow it. People don't want you to be humble. They want you to act like the you they think you are. They need evidence you're serving a higher purpose, other than yourself. If only, your past self. If not, they fear you. They can't trust. You will follow the rules. This dementia can't early onset fast enough. Older generation on TV again. In my day, the government didn't bail you out, and I had to cook our dog for dinner, and marry our cat. Freest market chooses socialism. I've caught the plague, or it's Tuesday. Our character could only fall asleep. When they woke up, person suffering from addiction, to public radio pledge drives. Our character takes leap of faith, moves digital porn collection to the cloud. Our character was always trying to get into soccer, but they never knew if they should root for T-Mobile, or Hyundai, or Fly Emirates. Maybe our character was writing for redemption. Was our character writing this? It couldn't not be, turning their mistakes into advice. Maybe this helped erase their mistakes. It didn't. Either way, it changed nothing. They still wrote red, and needed to finish. Our character was wondering how to act as a person in the outside place. They assumed they were doing it wrong in the before times too. Someone much smarter than them has probably already said this. You ever find yourself shitting and eating at the same time? That doesn't even make sense in human. How can the finished design maintain the status of a sketch, allowing the user to reperceive their relationship with the design, and the designer, the medium, intentions? The sketch must retain the elements of a finished product. Instead of trying to make the design look like a sketch, make our finished design act like a sketch, allowing the audience to abandon a sense of finality, without pandering, providing ambiguity within the design, deciding what not to close off, making connections, leaving some connections unfinished. An invitation to create a sketch of the proposed event, barely finished. Enough. We don't tell our guests everything that should happen. A costume party, where our character was. It was fine. Some people they knew, others they didn't. Good conversations with some, offended by others. At least they didn't overshare. For once, they would. Next, space-time. Drink every time a commercial refers to these times as difficult or uncertain. Carbo loading for the apocalypse. End of world anticlimactic. If the world were a better place, our character would absolutely be an idealist. Our character was surprised. They weren't as bad as person. They thought they were as bad as. They also weren't as good as others. But they didn't need to hear that now. We'd tell them later. Our character went to the movie theater. The movie's main character had skill strengths based off mistaken perceptions, accidental happenstance, fodder for comedy, preventing them from perceiving a certain way. They weren't. A cascade of perspectives. Keep caving in. All narrators untrustworthy. Untrustworthy. Readers. Person who claims they are independent. Really Republican. Hustle. Culture. Really just older generation. Regifting trauma, and applying to new industries. It didn't work. Freest nation heavily surveilled, censored, policed, and imprisoned. It didn't work, etc. Movie. Allowed our character to survive the trauma, live through the tension, without affecting the story. Others would tell about them. In the movie, situations based on flawed perspectives. Relatable. When science fails, it was all too human and contextual. Science too religious and too political. An excuse for science not being a science, only as good as the humans who use it. Nation too emotionally illiterate to develop alongside technology. Crust is bread peel. The kids are right. No crust. No crust. No crust. Nobody starts reading a book. They open it. They tell themselves. They'll look at the first couple pages. Then they find themselves reading the book. A lot was probably like this. In our character's space-time. When space-time is the prize, it isn't given freely, only begrudgingly, and not often, if at all. Author tells themselves they'll sit down and work on a couple pages. Then they find themselves writing the book. Our character had to purchase insurance at the restaurant before they got their meal. During our character's space-time, you had to apply for everything. They made industries out of it. They didn't realize, just because you could make an industry out of something, doesn't mean you should. Password prevents healthcare. Again, child puts down payment on candy. Baby leasing crib before buying. Older generation says, that's the way things work around here. After making things work the way they work around here, parent has to choose between food or vaccine for child. Background check needed for dating app. Paperwork prevents procreation. Lifestyles of the poor and unknown. Something as arbitrary as money was seemingly significant. During our character's space-time, they praised some people for having more of it. Life was a lot like high school, and a game show, where nobody won. Most of the contestants didn't want to play, and the same people kept winning. Our character was still trying to figure out how to monetize their problematic ability to disassociate. I wanna be hardcore, but still super safe. Our character thought, maybe they get a tattoo. We are all on our way to becoming something else. Multiracial skateboarding crew selling cars, cell phone service, and hard seltzer. Billionaires running out of ways to spend money. Our character had to pretend the majority of things happening weren't happening. Looking back, our character couldn't understand why. Never the problem child. So how? Why all this? Because it could happen to anyone. It didn't matter. Good people did good things. Bad people did bad things. This explanation was good enough for older generation. It wouldn't be for anyone else. This made even less sense now. Older generation watching TV couldn't differentiate between infomercials and news, let alone news infomercials. Lawyers thriving. Older generation, so resolute in their cause. They didn't care if it made less money or violated democratic principles. They were cracking all the eggs to make their omelet. Then they cracked the pan. Then they cracked the stove. They didn't stop until the house was swallowed by the Earth's molten core. Hollow Earthers furious about this assumption. They couldn't understand what they purposefully prevented themselves from understanding. People banning books in freest nation. They didn't get these new jokes. This weird sense of humor. Bang. We need more of your money. Our character. Why? Are you poor or something? Did the stars even fight a war? Are pirates Irish? Hold the line to the moon. Wrong answers only. Domino's phone app is actually pretty neat. Our character's date says, weekend warriors walking around hardware store like they can actually build shit. Have you even chopped wood, bro? Driver drumming to vocal melody of song, and not the goddamn fucking rhythm. What happened in our character's life had happened, and they had to believe that, in order to still be them. To act so drastically against one's own experiences, that could only happen to someone disassociating, or religious. It never made sense to our character, to go out of one's way, to make life harder for someone who does not pose as a threat to you. Extremely normal political party thought everyone posed a threat. Their club became so exclusive, nobody could join. A very narrow sense of self. Mission accomplished? You do you. Please don't. Our character's first inclination was to like someone before they hated them. It was their best feature, and why people liked them. Our character barely knew this during their lifetime. Our character gave everyone a blank slate. This was not common. Our character hoped others could learn this, or if our character wasn't actually doing it, they could learn it. They wanted to be unopinionated about all existence. Our character didn't like it when others were afraid. This made them uncomfortable, which made the person more uncomfortable. And our character could tell, which made them more uncomfortable. And the person could tell they could tell, which made the person more uncomfortable, etc. To get out of the feedback loop, someone had to say something else. They both offered up strange nonsensical chit-chat. It didn't solve the problem at all, but it tricked them into thinking they did. They could leave the feedback loop. It wasn't great, but I guess it worked. Wasn't it like U-Haul trucks that only made U-turns every turn, so they get there faster? Our character was too distracted to continue. They had been giving up mid-sentence, mid-conversation, a lot lately. Who cares anymore? The world was probably ending anyway. I feel sorry for the rich children who never had hand-me-downs. Maybe this is what others don't like about our character. Our character's disregard for the other's existence. Our character was merely preoccupied with other things at the space-time but couldn't communicate this effectively, unless the person was in front of them, or useful to our character, or posed a threat to our character. But isn't this how we all act? Is this human nature? The economy of space-time? Or maybe our character was the one who wants to feel important by saying that others go out of their way to make our character's life harder. It could have been, as much as it couldn't. Reductio ad absurdum ergo sum. New Popster is different. New Popster artistically influenced by car and cell phone sponsorship. ABBA aficionado cringes when Nance brings up her love of Mamma Mia in casual conversation. No starving children in Somalia nominated for Golden Globe Award. Professor transplaining astrophysics. Our character was attending another mandatory training session. At least they weren't the last one to arrive late. Let's network. Stay safe out there, folks. But more importantly, stay professional. People will always forget if you died from the plague, but they will never forget if you did it unprofessionally. Let's network. Don't be afraid of going insane. Be afraid of thinking you're normal. True insanity. Let's network. They were attempting to convert our character, yet again, but our character failed to see the connection between their current fall from grace and the historical and theoretical inadequacies of organized religion. Our characters, super powers of disassociation, were the only thing keeping their relationships together. It was a competition. Who could be the most stressed about the most things? The person most stressed would have had to fall back on in arguments. No matter what happened, the ace up the sleeve, it struck hollow. Suffering is being. Suffering ergo sum. Thriving. Via illegal drugs. Legal drugs. The main problem. Bar never set so low. Could be a good thing. Surely this cake will make me feel better. Our character was working on themselves. Normalize nocturnal. You know why authors drink a lot? Because people drink a lot. Authors are people too. Cheat code. Bumbling idiot dad. Quickest way to be left alone. Recovering academic. Oh shit. They're at it again. Telling the youths they can be anything they want to be when they grow up. Is potato love? Yes. I'm probably that one guy from that one time. There are hundreds of people alive today that looked exactly like our character. There are hundreds of people that look identical to our character's soulmate. There should be enough people to like the way another person looks. The problem, they have no way of meeting. There isn't a shortage of people, but a shortage of appropriate times to approach others. No space-time was appropriate for this, apparently. Instead of apologizing for mess they made, older generation diverts attention onto younger troubled generation, which they were able to get away with until that generation was adults, and then it rang hollow. How could older generation have seen this coming? What? Space-time passes. Had they not worked hard enough to infantilize an entire generation of people? Apparently. Nancy Reagan, throat goat of Hollywood. The most evil people appealed to Sky Wizard. Works every time. Are serial killers not religious? Are suicide bombers not religious? The atheist does not have to provide evidence they don't believe in Sky Wizard, but that's how religions get away with not having proof. Saying the other side can't provide proof, even when the other side can, and doesn't need to. Perfect time to join my cult. Let's network. I feel like life is probably just a highlight reel to show chicks in heaven. Let's network. If the government, higher being, etc. has put me under constant surveillance, can it please tell me where I put my keys? The birdie economy. Our character helped birds who made a nest in their shed. They believed it wasn't detracting from their own wealth. So generous when we believe it costs us nothing. Most generous when we have nothing to gain. So either it costs us nothing, or we have to believe it costs us nothing. In order to be generous, our character had grown tired of hearing their colleague philosophe. Our character should have been listening more closely. Our character hasn't had an I'm a fucking god moment in a while. Does anyone else have several weird bumps all over their head? To see if they were cancerous, our character was able to get an appointment in 6 months. All these years eating a humble pie full of crows. You can make the right decision and still be wrong. Our character sent the following automated message: I can't communicate right now. I'm currently out of brain space for human interaction. I'll get back to you as soon as anything matters again. Please leave a message. Our character was out of excuses. If you never hear from our character again, they ran out of storage space on their devices and gave up. All calls recorded. In Freest Nation. Freest Nation needs health care. Instead they got a pre-recorded phone menu. They were on hold for hours. Forever. Freest Nation's receptionists are killing us. If our character has to make one more username, or one more password, they are moving to the Australian outback. Our character felt no need to convert others to their belief system. They weren't sure their belief system worked. This was one of their best features, but it wasn't promoted during our character's space-time. There was no competition to be the most unattached. There was no way to measure it. Religions and governments cannot exploit you if you believe in nothing. So instead, our character was ostracized for not believing in a religion they did not need to be a good person. Did you have enough potato today? Our character thought. Nothing matters. The extremely normal money system replied. Want to buy stuff though? Older generation blames younger generation for allowing older generation to destroy everything. Climate change is a conspiracy that benefits Wade. What's a conspiracy again? Adventure is #1 cause of death. For poor people, there are always synthesized emotions that creep into every dealing with others. Like the pink apartment building next to our hotel. Unnatural. A terrible attempt to one-up nature. Some falseness lies at the bottom of everything. It is becoming more apparent to our character every day. Now a person with no ambitions, their dreams beaten out of them. They now only existed in the middle of the night to write down these words, to bring vengeance upon the minds that tore their soul from them. Ghosts of founding fathers. When did cocaine become illegal? None of this works without cocaine in the morning and opium at night. Great time to double down on failed casino owner. Culture losing culture wars. No, I'm the president. I assume one of my biggest flaws is being too sexy. Our character thought this was pretty funny. If you see something, smell something. Extremely normal political party was the party of personal accountability. For people who have the least control over their lives. Personal accountability. Except for presidents. And rich people. Also police. Oh, and insurrectionists. And white supremacists. Oh, also Nazis. But Hitler had some bad ideas too, right? Slave owners are also fine. Let's not be too quick to judge assault rifles. Rapists are okay as long as they follow winemaker. Orange man announces candidacy for sainthood. Nation botches suicide. Fiscally racist. Also socially racist. Our character felt a true void of light, the only true reality. Others have become numb too. We are all just walking, talking contradictions that eventually fade into the vastness of space-time. The happier you are, the better you've been able to lie to yourself. This isn't true all the space-time, and it was difficult to admit, but it might have been like this during our character's space-time. Our character felt it at space-times, but the sharp fading. At 4:10 a.m., everything is numb. Our character wrote, because our character didn't sleep. LinkedIn Planet Fitness top questions to ask during job tournament. Is your workplace Millennial Hunger Games? Is there a prize for winning? Will it be televised? If televised, do I get residuals? Are there opportunities for branding or a series spin-off? Mango cocaine seltzer. I don't want my taxes paying for things my taxes wouldn't be paying for anyway. Our character's neighbor had been growing more and more vocal, but they made less and less sense. Everyone loves a good pull yourself up by your bootstraps comeback story, unless it's someone you know, and then you want them to fail miserably. Because who do they think they are? As long as you stay in between the lines, for the most part, you'll probably be okay. Whenever you can remember to do it, do it. Always take a step back. Think about who you are trying to please. Sometimes it will be the right people. Sometimes it will be the wrong people. We wish we could tell our character which was which. We couldn't. And even if we could, we couldn't. Could we? States and corporations have more rights than people. Eating solids difficult without dental insurance. Public health experts recommend not eating shit. Extremely normal political party responds with Poop Fest 2024. Virus not adhering to news cycle. Pro-virus and pro-states' rights. Bad acting. Inspired by. Bad writing. A hodgepodge of antiquated social theories. Wanted one more golden moment in the sun, before falling back into the fires of hell, from whence they came. Extremely normal politician is furious about hypothetical issue they imagined. Who is our character serving? This would help us understand what direction they are headed. Our character was doing fine, so long as they didn't claim to have any answers. The right co-opts the left's rhetoric of victimization. The left co-opts the right's rhetoric of absolute truths, etc. Our character had a quip about a third party, libertarian, really Republican, with extra steps, but they weren't able to follow through with it. Imagine all the crimes we don't know Orange Man is committing. Our character couldn't tell if naps were making their sleep better or worse. Their sleep appeared to be bad. Regardless, nobody likes their cage, but some people work within it. Cage, where we are with consciousness. Only animals are smart enough to remember they are in a cage. The lizard tried to get out again. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in Plato's cave. The cave is logos. We built it for our character. When should we let them out? By staying inside the cave. We get outside the cage. We remain. Logos helping and preventing. Our character belonged to the only species of feces who could see MPRHNDWHTM type in right now. Truth arrives when we are ready. Advice arrives too late. We prevent ourselves from seeing, before we are ready, the exact amount. The average is reality, what we can handle. If you feel like you've read this before, you have. Our character had. Probably. I am the edge point of reality. We are the edge point of reality. It is the edge point of reality. They are the edge point of reality. I am the edge point of reality. We are the edge point of reality. It is the edge point of reality. They are the edge point of reality. I am the edge point of reality. Our character thought they were joking, because others thought they were joking. Our character needed a win, so they took it. Always pause, and explain your universe. If others don't understand you, was all this merely some tortuous inside joke with our character? Life. There has to be more ephemeral stuff. damp grass in the dark. During our character's space-time, presidential candidate runs on, bringing troops home from war on Christmas, with puppies, etc. Extremely normal politicians worship Sky Wizard and Orange Man. Our character thought about writing some of this down. They forgot what they were going to say. If you write a book about how scholars don't take humor seriously, scholars might not take it seriously. Does your boyfriend even shop at craft stores? Extremely normal money system creates competition, which breeds innovation, which is why we haven't been able to move beyond extremely normal money system. Wait, what's innovation again? Extremely normal money system is trauma, trying to have a weekend every night. Does your boyfriend even have a microphone? People aren't machines. They don't operate with exact consistency. Neither do machines. Apparently, our character had car trouble. Once again, our character was using facial expressions inconsistently and unknowingly. How could we tell them without them freaking out? All the throwaway lines, chit-chat to fill the air, barely meaning any of it, never not extra, offer only. Our character wanted to tell people. They met our character at a strange space-time, in our character's life. But honestly, our character's life has all been very strange. Both sides have good points. Says centrist, Republican, postmodern auto mechanic. Hear me out. Alaskan NFL team. Investing too much in particular things a person has done, instead of taking the person as a whole, instead of consulting the source. The quest for perfection is futile, also undesirable, and at times, unattractive. Activities that were only supposed to bring people together. Then people invest too much. Now there is too much at stake. Activity breaks people apart. Science only as good as the people who use it. We all play games. The ones our character played showed others how much space-time they had on their hands. Or so they all thought. Get rid of one-word descriptions for people. People riding in car, in independent film. Really getting away from it all. Getting out through the vent. Saved countless plots. Climate change's extreme weather is a great way for poor people to get out into nature. Our character thought they could get away with just doing a really good job. It never worked. Who spams regular people? Who would benefit from this? Sure, older generation might be taken advantage of, not because they are technologically illiterate, but because they are not smart, but they are the most persistent, have the most time, and the most money to fight back. So, it can't be too lucrative. Making communication unnecessarily difficult is necessary in fascist nation. Sorry, freest nation. If people were able to communicate clearly, they'd realize how badly those in charge were doing. People need to miss appointments, drop calls, be late on payments, unable to schedule doctor's visits. Technology needs to break after a certain amount of years. Misread the fine print. These aren't accidents, these are the capital-generating strategies of a police state. The secretaries become police. Floor managers become police. Teachers become police. Any and every authority must become police. Over-policing the selves. Except nobody. Extremely normal political party. What if we made everything a gun? Faith-based small batch organic free-range green energy. Cybersecurity. Good at locking people out of their accounts. Helping Disney take down copyright violations. Bad at apparently everything else. Our character understood. These were first world problems. But still, do better. There is no first world. Only last world. Wrong right now. Our character didn't have interesting things to do or think. So they made an annoying sound instead. Our character plays an unproductive circular game to pass through the space-time. For example, dating, etc. Nothing more, nothing less, not a given. One person will find one person to live with their entire life. Our characters dissatisfaction in the way things are, and their reflex, to change the world around them, to fit their idea of what should lead them on a never-ending path of dissatisfaction. Scrap it, or fix it in post? Did our character get smarter or wiser with age? Blaming our character for their shortcomings became too convenient for too many people. Mental laziness, not included on list of enemies for older generations. War on laziness, disenfranchised peoples. The unemployment department asked our character how much they made this year. They didn't know exactly. Then the lady told our character how much they made. Our character couldn't figure out why did they ask them in the first place. Or worse, loser? Slippery slope, not slippery enough for older generation to curb the mental health crisis during our character's space-time. The news decided to only report when politicians agreed. They didn't report for a couple years. Nation racists. On principle. Devil not advocate. Just devil. Devil offended. Hey, leave me out of this. Character not necessarily smarter, wiser with age, but they recognized sooner when and how to get out of bad situations. They'd still make the same mistakes. However, they'd cover them up better. It wasn't a great system, but it worked for most. It didn't. Politicians should never be hired to carry out a particular policy. They should be hired to be able to see the way the things are, and act accordingly. Some political parties encouraged this, others did not. Again, they were not very smart during our character's space-time. Politics should have been boring. It was their main source of entertainment. The entertainment must not have been good. To be creative, our character had to come up with a lot of ideas. Some good, some bad. Show people the good, hide the bad, etc. They could come up with one good idea for every 100 bad ideas, so they only had to hide the other 99. You have to fail miserably in order to succeed. And as long as you keep your head above water, more than you fall under, you will do just fine. They didn't. In a community, our character was forced to participate in consciousness. Our character must have started, at some point, as a blank slate, tabula rasa, in which it is possible for a head voice or personality or identity or unconscious consciousness to evolve. Outside of possible future communication, would it be necessary for our character to have a head voice? How could we find out? The head voice medium. What audience does it address? Communication must be practiced and repeated within the individual to be used with others. Anyone talking shit is talking in third person. It's magic and mischief that keep this whole thing going. Our character remembered saying this to someone. Upon repetition, our character was revolted by the inauthentic whimsy. Smug in the fog. On a different schedule, midway through a conversation, is the worst time to remember. You are socially awkward and only pretending to adult. Fraud depends on other frauds. For others, not to realize they were a fraud. Impossible to tell who was a fraud and who was not. During our character's space-time, someone says craft beer at tap room. Everyone realizes people who drink craft beer just call it beer. Many of the people our character met today, they'd never see again the rest of their lives. No cause worth dying for, at least during our character's space-time. Oh damn, people in charge really are that stupid. Always take the train. Autocorrect biggest setback for human-AI relations. Spike in 76ers jersey sales. Apparently, mission not all that impossible. 40% of a human's life spent trying to charge phone. I want healthcare to be expensive and insufficient. Our character took a shower with clothes on. It felt like they were breaking every human law ever. People who always follow the rules are the most terrifying. It is necessarily impossible to always follow the rules. You can't do anything without breaking a rule someone has set. Someone somewhere has outlawed what you are doing. Religion is merely convenient, because people assume they know what set of rules another person is living by. Were they? They never were. Ho body's nerve fact. Catholic not voting for Catholic president because Catholic is Catholic. If you actually thought about things during our character's space-time, it would hurt your head. So most people were trying not to. It didn't work. Our character had to become their own role model. They didn't realize that was a thing. Everything a thing now. Every word now the name of musical artist. I guess it was our character's time to lead. They had to be the strong one. Odd. They did not want to be in charge, which made them good at being in charge. Fig futons, big crouton, lobbies for more salad. Holidays make it acceptable for adults to eat as much candy as possible. You're not a real parent until you've woken up next to your child in the middle of the night, soaked by their urine, and said fuck it, and fell back asleep. When the single head voice has been lost, the original purpose is lost. To a multiplicity, multiplied personality disorder, only a tool for communication. The need for a head voice is repeated when it has already been achieved. The problem remains whether 2 or 200,000 different personalities. The original personality was not strongly established. The individual is not being reaffirmed of their reality. Nobody was. During this space-time, our character had to beat them at their own game, no matter how much they didn't want to play. You don't have to be offended by everything. You don't have to be offended by anything. This pandemic has given our character a good opportunity to evaluate their post-apocalypse team. When quarantine is over, dogs will be able to talk. We aren't going to like what they have to say. All memes go to heaven too. Lol. Imagine if Orange Man became president. Lol WTF? Failed casino owner. Surprisingly makes bad leader. Art must create the wand, and deliver on the wand. Provide the quiz, and the answers. Each piece needs its own logos. A new world, a new form, a new style, etc. Be form, beforming, in the mind of their audience. Every time the art is displayed, performed, etc. In every sport there is a counterintuitive but necessary flick of the wrist. It determines mastery. It is the threshold. It feels almost the same as when you fail, except for the flick. Find the angle. Repeat. Over and over. A million times. Routine is Sky Wizard. Money can absolutely buy happiness. All of our characters' current problems could be solved with money. In curiosity, running from what you know, instead of running to it. Perpetual concealment from yourselves. A constant fear of failure. Mental cowardice. Mental laziness. Older generation doesn't understand what they don't understand. Older generation doesn't understand why younger generation isn't buying houses. Older generation could add things up, but could not knock them down when they no longer added up. Confirmation bias. In an echo chamber, inside an ivory tower, waking up, a second wind, another chance. Run Lola, run. Alarmist nation. Our character was on trial. Everyone was, at all times. It wasn't fun. It was also counterproductive. Our character never decided to get up in the morning. They just couldn't put their mind back to sleep. Symbolism symbolic. Abraham sacrificing son. Never sat right with our character. What else was like this, that our character couldn't agree with, but accepted? What kind of love is that? A love of betrayal. Cruelty of Old Testament Sky Wizard, only surpassed by cruelty of New Testament Sky Wizard. These examples were given to young people, only during our character's space-time. Who can have the least amount of fun? Wait, why is this a competition? President good for economy. Stock market did blippity-doop to be. President bad for economy. Stock market did filippity-dippity-hoo. Poor people still poor. Orange man not a good president. Also not a good person. Nation. Failing group assignment. Low power mode. I will respond to your message after monthly reboot. Time travel with definitive now points. Conceals everything as a constant happening. At once. In at all space-time. Flowing through us. We inhabit all. For however long. People. Realities. A universe. Plants. Animals. Etc. The space-timeless. Formless. Ineffable fabric of soul. Can you be there in 4 hours? No. But does 1 millimeter growth of my carrots work? The transition from polytheism to monotheism. The multi-voiced individual. The singular individual. Placed into a mold. By one all-seeing, omniscient sky wizard. The singularization organizes. Now the individual can be disciplined. By law, career, romance, etc. Otherwise, how could we know if our character was winning or losing? Sleep is the most important thing. If you want to be a lazy fucking loser, that amounts to nothing. You piece of shit. Capitalism would rather be inefficient than empathetic. Randy takes a shit in the office toilet at 8:45 a.m. each day. But Nance was in there. Goddammit, Nance. Our character never wanted to see any of their colleagues for the rest of their life. If you're unemployed, Monday is your Monday, and your Friday. Our character didn't ask if things were good or bad anymore. They skipped to bad or worst. Every day is a weekend. If you're high enough. Applewood. Smoked bacon tastes nothing like apple. Or wood. Pretty much just bacon. In most of their friend groups, our character figured they'd be the getaway driver in the highs. They could really rock a leather jacket. Top 70 questions to ask the 70-year-old interviewing you. Have you hired so many bad unqualified employees that clients hate us before they meet us?